So have you been able to wrap your head around what's happened in the last 48 hours?
I have. I have. I tell you, people ask me, has it sunk in yet? Does it seem real? Well, we've lived it. We've lived it. We've lived it for, really the last, 20 games of the season or so, where we went through obviously a great start of the year. First 20 games, we were red hot, and then we went through our struggles in the middle, and then the latter third of the season, this team has really played good baseball and been very, very consistent. So, it has sunk in simply because I've seen a team that has done everything they can to put themselves in this position and grinded out games, grinded out at bats, grinded out innings, found ways to win series, had an unbelievable ACC tournament. So, I'm just sitting back and just enjoying every day and enjoying being with this group of kids, and have a lot of respect for what they've accomplished up to this point.
When you first got here last year, one of the first things you said was, I want a team that plays loose. Mm-hmm. They seem to really have embraced that, have they?
Well, I think in the game of baseball, I've often tried to coach players the way that it would have worked best for me, because I was a highly frustrated, hot-headed, helmet-slamming, temper tantrum player. I was the guy that would break bats, and I was just a high-intensity player. That's what I was. I was a football player playing baseball. And so I was a constant up-and-down player because I couldn't deal with frustration and failure. And when I got into coaching, I saw a lot of the same characteristics in kids. And I realized, I can help a kid like this because I've been through this before, and I know how it affected me as a player. And if there was one regret I had as a player when my career was over, is I wish I could go back and enjoy the game more, because I was constantly living and dying with every at bat and every game and every slump and every high and low. And you realize when you get into coaching that that's not the way to play the game. You can't play the game that way if you're constantly worried about failing. So I think it just helped me as a young coach understand that to get the most out of players, try to provide them with an environment that they enjoy. They've got to enjoy coming to the field every single day. They got to look forward to being a part of the process, and they have to understand that they got to forget about their batting average and their ERA and all that, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter. And I try to tell a team every year at the beginning of the year, nobody's going to remember what you hit this year. Nobody's going to remember what your ERA was this year. But everybody's going to remember if you win a championship and if you were part of a championship team. And that's one thing that these kids on this team will remember. Everybody will remember that Seth Beer had an unreal freshman year and was ACC Player of the Year. But at the end of the day, people will remember he was part of an ACC championship team. And there's a lot of great storylines with this team. But I think at the end of the day, these kids have enjoyed competing together and have bought into it's a team game. We do this together. And it's a selfless group of guys. And it is a loose and fun environment. And I've intended it to be that way, and I want it to be that way. And there's times where we got to be tough on them. There's times where we have some tough talks, but it's because we love them. As coaches, we love them, and we want them to be successful. It's about the guys, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Speaking of Seth Beer, your self-described temperament sounds like the antithesis of him. I don't think I've seen him throw a helmet or get down on himself once since day one. Obviously, he hasn't had a lot of failure, but how unique is that for a kid at his age?
Well, he has the mental makeup to play the game. He's a kid that handles adversity really, really well. He understands that. I think the most impressive thing about Seth is once people started pitching around him and not giving him anything to hit, he handled it the right way, because we talked about it. And I told him, I said, look, they're not going to pitch to you. You need to just take your walks. Just take your walks, because every time you get on base, it gives us an opportunity to score runs. And there's a lot of kids at his age that would start overswinging, getting frustrated by the fact that people aren't pitching to him. And he hasn't done that, and that shows the sign of maturity that he has. But he handles it well. He's an incredible competitor. I think that's what makes him so successful. Is he's extremely competitive, extremely hard-working, but he has a very even-keel mentality, which you need as a baseball player.
Clemson's been sent on the road the last few years for regionals, and it hasn't gone well. I mean, how significant is it to have home field advantage in the playoffs?
We play really well at home. We have all year, and we've got one of the most rabid fan bases in all of college baseball. We have an incredible atmosphere here, and I know the people of Clemson and fans of our program are just excited and elated about the opportunity, for us to be playing at home in the postseason. And we look forward to having them here this weekend. And I know our guys are excited. Our guys are excited about being at home. And again, they're being rewarded for what they've done in the regular season. Now, they're being rewarded for that, what they did in the ACC tournament. So it's a great time for us. It's a great time for our fan base because we're bringing the regional to Doug Kingsmore Stadium this weekend.
With it being, the regionals now, does that change your approach at all?
I don't think so. No, not really. I mean, again, our objective is the same as if you're going into a series. You're trying to stay in the winner's bracket, though. I mean, that's the biggest thing is you got to win game one. You got to worry about each game and understand that you got to take care of business in game one. You can't overlook anybody. Because all the teams that are in our regional are very deserving. And Western Carolina's got great pitching. They've got starting pitching that's really, really good. They've got a lineup that's really good. You look at their lineup and what they did against, our pitching staff, they scored runs. So they put a lot of pressure on us when we played them. So, for us right now, we're not really approaching it any differently. We're just going into game one and we're going to, do what we have to do to win that game. And if we're fortunate enough to do that, then we'll move on from there. But no, we're not really approaching it, any differently.
You told us the other day that you'd keep Pat Crawl in the bullpen. How elastic is that going forward in the postseason?
Well, again, we're going to use Pat to help us win ball games. And we're going to approach the Western Carolina game the way that we have just about every series this year. If we need to use Pat Crawl to save the ball game, depending on the score and the situation, we will use him. And if we don't, then moving forward from that point on, we'll decide what's the best way for us to use him. And that's kind of what we've done with him. He's kind of, I call him like a swing guy. You can swing him in as a starter, reliever, long reliever, whatever you need to help you win that game. And that's what we're going to do with him. We'll use him each day to try to help us win that game.
So you'll continue to consider using him as a starter?
We could potentially use him as a starter in one of the games, but I would anticipate within the first two games, I would anticipate we're probably going to have to use Pat Crawl to win one of those games. If we want to get to game three, we're probably going to have to use Pat Crawl. And I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to sit on my hands trying to win a regional with the best pitcher in the country sitting in my dugout.
Who you going to go with on Friday? You're going to pitch on Friday?
Yes, we're going to go with Barnes. We're going to go with Charlie Barnes in game one.
And maybe Clade in game two, or just see how it goes?
Strongly considering going with Clade in game two. I think he's warranted that. So, I feel pretty good right now that's probably what we'll do, but we'll discuss it a little bit more before we make that official call. But we are going with Charlie Barnes in game one.
You earned the right to not only host, but to get a national seed. Does that speak to the approach to the midweek games and going after those and not just kind of treating them as a B-level game compared to the ACC?
Well, I've said it, time and time again. I think if you want to host a regional, if you want to be in the position that we're in, you have to be consistent. And the only way you're going to be consistent in this game is if you treat every game the same. We don't put a strong emphasis on Friday night in the ACC compared to a Tuesday night game. That's a midweek game. We don't change our approach or any sort of emphasis one way or the other. We don't look at it any differently. We're going to do everything we can to win every single ball game because at the end of the year, they're going to look at your resume. And if you overlook the midweek games or you don't have that sense of urgency and that heightened awareness that you need to win those games in the middle of the week, then they're going to penalize you when they get in that selection room and start looking at your resume and they start seeing that you've lost some games in the middle of the week. They're going to penalize you. So, to me, all I've done is told the team the truth from the very beginning that every single game is extremely important because they're all going towards that resume that we're trying to build to get into the field of 64.